Welcome to Current Situation, your Palmetto State political pulse. I'm your host, Joshua Gale, alongside South Carolina State House Representative Jordan Pace. Every episode, our goal is to help you navigate the complex world of politics through biblically conservative perspectives. Before we jump into today's conversation, we want to take a moment to thank our sponsor.
Smashing Plastic Pickleball podcast is going to be about the three most amazing things about pickleball. Number one, the community. Number two, the health benefits. And lastly, but most importantly, is fun. The podcast of Smashing Plastic Pickleball is going to emphasize on fun. Yes, fundamentals of playing pickleball will be a part of what we talk about, but most importantly, just the fun of pickleball. That is Smashing Plastic Pickleball, and we want to have you tune into our podcast today.
In this episode, we will explore the hidden world of dark money in elections. We'll discuss how these groups hide their funding sources, influence policy decisions, and stay under the radar. Jordan, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well. Jordan, so dark money is not something new to the political world, but we are seeing an influx in the last 4 years in elections. Beginning back in 2020, we saw a major increase in billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars into dark money groups. And so what does this look like when you get these mailers and these things from groups that are not the candidates themselves? They're basically using loopholes to influence elections. So let's go ahead and jump into that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure as you and I have undoubtedly been, many of our listeners have been inundated with just piles and piles and piles of mailers and text messages and phone calls, all this stuff that, like you said, prior to 2020, mostly would have been from the candidates that were running for whatever they were running for. Since then, like I said, on the federal level, there's been an explosion of quote unquote dark money in elections. Here in the state level in South Carolina, we don't lead the way on a whole lot, unfortunately, but one of the things we certainly have led the way on is dark money in elections. And it's very, very much a double-sided sword. So back in the early 2010s, there was a South Carolina Supreme Court ruling that threw out the old definition of a political committee. Right now, the state does not have a working definition of a political committee. So literally anyone can form a committee and spend money on an election. And there are some rules about if you do certain things, you have to disclose it with the Ethics Commission. Like if you spend more than, I think it's $500, or raise more than $500, that's supposed to be reported to the Ethics Commission. However, like you said, there are loopholes. For instance, if text messages in South Carolina do not require a paid-for by portion in the text. So on mail, try to show an example. Here's a pretty bland one. This is, for those who are listening and not watching, just kind of a standard mailer, keep voting, go do your civic duty, go vote on, this one says June 12th. This is from a few years ago. But at the bottom it says, paid for by Conservation Voters of South Carolina PAC. So on mail, you have to have that. And on like digital ads and things like that, they'll have paid for by. But text messages, you don't have to have it. So literally anyone can send a text message, spoof the phone number, which they often do, so it's untraceable, and say anything they want about anybody.
Right.
So why is that a problem? Here, the biggest problem with that is because you can say anything about anybody. Free speech is enshrined in the Constitution. It's a fundamental, inalienable right, but so is your ability, your right to face your accuser is also part of that framework of rights in the United States. So not knowing who to confront if someone's saying, accusing a candidate of, maybe voting one way or being a bad person or doing criminal things, there's no one to confront. I mean, that's the issue there that I have with that particular law. But on a larger scale, I know there's a lot of complaints people have had about, man, we're just getting so much mail. I've personally gotten mailers. We might have shown this one before. I've gotten like 3 or 4 of full page negative mailers making claims, lying, disingenuous claims about me and my voting record, by the Palmetto Truth Project, which is one of those ironically named organizations that does not care much about truth.
What do they care about?
Oh, they care about power. That's what they care about.
Right. So you can purchase power. You can purchase influence.
So that's maybe what they're trying to do,
right?
With all this money. And a lot of people have try to bring us solutions, answers to this. Well, can we restrict it? Can we force a new definition of a committee to try to regulate it more? And as someone who's been attacked by these organizations, by these PACs, there is a temptation there to say, yeah, let's let the state fix it. Like, let's wield government power to try to fix the problem. And outside of that text message thing, I don't know that there is a way for government to fix this problem, or that, frankly, that it's actually a problem, other than it piling up on people's doorsteps and kitchen tables. But as far as the political process, this is kind of the way it's supposed to work, where the people who are most interested, who have the most vested interest in the political process, put the most effort and put the most funding, money, time, thoughtfulness, activity, are going to get the most out of the political process.
Okay.
And right now, I say right now, I don't know how the outcome's going to go. If you look at the scope of the last 100 years, especially the last 50 years, the conservative Christian base, except for a few spurts here and there, I don't think is really invested their time, talent, and treasure into the political process, especially on the state and local level, in the same way that the left, like the hard left side of the political spectrum, has invested the way that they have. And there's a reason why they've been winning a lot of these fights on the political front. Is because they care more. Jesus says, told his disciples that where your treasure is, where your heart is, your treasure will be also.
Right.
And that's applicable to this.
Absolutely. So the church obviously needs to, number one, unify, but number two, wake up. The shepherds, the leaders of these groups need to understand, like, we're sending money to missionaries. We're, doing all these great things that we think are really impacting, our immediate sphere of influence. But I think we've been called, to rule and to reign and to walk in power and authority over the territory where we live, and that includes legislation. And right now we're being outwitted, outsmart, outduped, and remaining ignorant to this political process. And if we do not put that treasure there, and because it's obviously something that we know that the Lord cares about, and then we don't get the ability to shake our fist at the outcome, because we literally have not put our money where our mouth is.
And the way I'm looking at it is as a way of loving our neighbors. We should want the best policy, like like public policy for our neighbors. Like that to me is loving your neighbors, like seeking. In Jeremiah, God tells the Judeans that they're about to go into exile, but when they're in exile, they should seek after the well being of the city that they're going to be in, even though it's not their city.
Right.
So even though this isn't our forever home, so to speak, as Christians, we're supposed to seek the well-being of the city and our neighbors around us. So allowing, the hard left to enunciate or like propagate their failed socialistic economics or very detrimental social policies on those around us, we're not loving our neighbors. And I know that phrase has kind of been thrown around a lot the last few years for various fashions and purposes, but that's straight from the Bible. Like, whether you're in exile or whether you're at home, like if you're in Jerusalem or Babylon, seeking that better public policy is a good thing and something we're commanded to do.
Absolutely.
And we need to invest in it.
So obviously, there's a lot of money spent in South Carolina. You mentioned that. That's something that we lead into. And we're talking billions of dollars. If we can sway South Carolina, we can sway the rest of the red states, or we can influence. We're talking big money from, you're talking large corporations.
Yeah, large corporations and big time individuals. There's an individual in particular who's is a property developer in Columbia. He's invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably millions of dollars in total, between giving to candidates and just kind of political operations, whether it be PACs or mailers or committees or what have you. And he's going to wind up making, from 2 or 3 real estate deals with the state, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wow.
A 100-fold return on his investment at the taxpayer's expense.
Right.
So there are people that are personally invested. And then, like you said, there's corporations, and then there's ideologues that maybe not going to make a bunch of money from it, but they're going to get their policies enacted that they are religiously zealots about, whether it be the alphabet mafia or whoever.
Right.
That is their religion, and they put their faith into practice. And
right.
I think to the detriment of a lot of our neighbors.
Yeah. But it's happening. It's right under our noses, right under our feet. We're going to have a guest on next week from South Africa, who was a very successful gentleman, but saw so much corruption, and he's going to heed a warning to us here. When things go unchecked, and money's just sent certain places, and dark money just makes that part of the world go around. The situation they're in South Africa right now it didn't happen overnight. Obviously, there's been political turmoil there forever, but the corruption is what he's going to expose and to tell us about. That he sees things lining up that way. So we're gonna learn from some mistakes and learn that we have to, as the church, wake up.
Yeah, and South Africa is a good example of trying to wield government power to fix a problem that was started by the government in the first place. And I think that's a danger that we fall into. I think it was in 2016 or 2017 was the last big push in South Carolina for quote unquote election reform with this dark money stuff. Senator Leatherman, who ran the Senate at the time, tried to force a bill through on the Senate, and thankfully it was stopped because of public outcry, that would require all donors to all committees that do any political activity to be public. And at first blush, somebody might go, "Oh, well, okay, that's understandable." But if you think about it for like more than 5 seconds and then read some of the history behind it, that was actually ruled unconstitutional in Alabama back in the 70s, because back then, the in Alabama they required that, and the Ku Klux Klan would get a hold of the donation list for the pro integration organizations and then terrorize those donors.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, not quite as analogous to that. But imagine here, if whether it be one corporation that wants something versus their rival who wants something else, if they had access to those donor lists, it could be problematic, or it just could be whether political divides or what have you.
Right.
So thankfully that died, because we can't regulate ourselves out of this. This is a cultural issue that has bled into the political sphere, and because they're not disconnected. Like as a society, Christians in South Carolina, like you said, we are giving to missions projects. We are the most generous group of any groups in the state, of any groups in the country and in the world. Christians are, particularly conservative Christians, are the most generous when it comes to charitable giving. Where we struggle is in the political giving, and because I think a lot of people just don't get the connection there about how it affects not just them but everyone around them, and how it, because we're in the United States, which is for the moment the global hegemon, the global singular political and economic power, it ripples out throughout the rest of the world. What our politics do. So it's very important and often overlooked, even on a state and local level. For instance, when you give to a candidate that's running for like a state house seat or a city council seat or a county council seat, we've seen in the last few years how important all of those things are for how it affects our everyday lives. But during the early days of COVID, when the governor of South Carolina was flouting state law, and just reissuing the same emergency order every 2 weeks because the law said it expired every 2 weeks. So he just said, I don't care what the law says. I'm just going to do the same thing over and over again. Well, nobody stopped him. And because of that, hundreds of small businesses were shut down and closed.
Yep.
So that's not only the livelihoods of those individuals, but everybody who worked for them, everybody in that chain, supply chain. It affected local government revenues through taxes. This morning I went to a press conference in Greer, in the upstate, for small businesses that are being destroyed because of regulations in South Carolina having to do with their insurance.
Right.
Basically anybody who has to have liquor liability insurance. So bars, restaurants,
all your favorite venues
for music. I mean, the Blind Horse Saloon in the Greenville had been open, I think, for 29 years. So the majority of our lifetime. Right. One of, if not the biggest music venue in Greenville, closed because of this. Their insurance cost went up like 300% a year or something insane. It's something crazy. Right. I heard one guy today, one of his shops, he said it was in Rock Hill, it was 1,000 square foot. The first year paid like $16,000 a year in insurance. The second year was $35,000, and this last quote he got was for 113 or 130,000. It was insane, just crazy. He closed because he said he couldn't afford it. So that's the kind of that's the impact that public policy has. Whether you even if somebody's not a drinker and not someone who frequents these kind of places, they have an economic impact on your neighbors when they close. And our hope with this press conference this morning was to bring attention to that, because the House passed a bill that might have helped Senate refused to take it up. The Senate kind of started to take their version up, but only got to like a discussion in a committee, and then it died. And it's hurting insurance companies.
Yeah.
It's hurting small businesses. It's hurting the
Well,
public.
it's hurting your pockets too. You would be silly not to
Correct.
understand that your concert tickets more expensive.
Mhm. Yep.
Your food at restaurants more
More
expensive. It's not just food costs that's
Yeah.
going up; it's insurance.
Yeah, and even if you think your local like bar and grill, any under state law, if they're if a establishment more than 30% of their sales is alcohol, then they're considered a bar, and they're taxed higher, they're taxed differently, their insurance is different. So if you look at why are food costs going up, not only is it inflation, the kind of because the Fed keeps printing money, it's also the fact that these bars, these restaurants have to keep a very, very close eye on their sales of food versus alcohol. Otherwise, it could shut them down.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot playing into that secondary, tertiary, and even further effects. So my hope and my plea to folks is just pay attention, one, to who is sending these mailers. Is it the candidate themselves? Is it a group that you can look up? There are some groups that have a board, they're public in who they are, they'll tell you about who they are. Those groups are probably going to be a lot more legitimate than some made-up group like the Palmetto Truth Project, quote unquote. Even groups that I disagree with a lot of times, kind of on the left side of things, I appreciate at least that they'll put who they are out there,
Right.
And provide some legitimacy to what they're saying. Pay attention to who that is, but also pay attention to what you're investing in. And maybe the inflation and everything else is getting way out of hand. Budgets are tight. If you can't give to candidates, if you can't give to groups, that's very understandable. What are you doing with your time? Like, can you go knock doors and make phone calls for candidates? We're less than 2 weeks away from the June 11th primary. There are dozens and dozens of state house and state senate and county council races and sheriff's races all over the state. Find a candidate and take a Saturday, this Saturday, next Saturday, and go knock doors with them. Go talk to your neighbors.
Yeah.
Hey, vote for whoever your preferred candidate is.
Right.
And that makes a huge difference. That's worth more than money if a candidate's smart and knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. It is, and that's the grassroots part. It is a lonely thing being a politician and running for a race. I remember the first time I brought my two oldest children. I've got 4 children. I brought my 2 oldest children to hold up signs for you near a polling location.
Yeah, it was awesome.
From that moment on, anything happens, Dad, does Mr. Jordan know about this? Does he know this is going on? Is he going to do something about this? But they understand that there's power in being a state representative, and my children have seen this political process, and they know that something can be done. Does Mr. Jordan know about this? The person who can actually do something about it. And it's pretty funny usually when it's in regards to whether it's graffiti somewhere, just whatever it may be. But does Mr. Jordan know about this? Does someone, but they're aware, and it's how we spend our time, and it should be that the next generation sees us, how we spend our time and our money. It's money well gifted. Generosity is a biblical principle, and there's so much to it. Harvard did a case study asking people, some of the wealthiest people in the world that have learned to live on less and to give more. And they realize that there's something about generosity. We know what it is. It's the heart of the Father. But there's some biblical principles that other people in the world have adopted because they realize, hold on, I think reaping and sowing is actually something that exists. So don't withhold from political candidates and find the one. Do your due diligence. Find the one that aligns with like conservative biblical, or if there's not one, God save them or move them. Like literally evangelize them, invite them to church, introduce them to your pastor. I know every politician would love to be invited to church to meet some people they've never met and to expand their sphere of influence.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do it. Invite them to church.
And a lot of them need Jesus. So invite them to
lot
church.
of them need Jesus. A lot of them need an encounter with God.
Mm-hmm.
And what an incredible place it would be when we all encounter God in the heart of the Father.
Yep. Amen.
Any final words, Jordan, before we conclude this episode?
No, I'll just repeat that, and that's what you were saying about kind of instilling that in your kids and the next generation. The stats and stuff that I've seen for the last few weeks about like Generation Z and I think Gen Alpha or whatever younger than that, particularly like millennials and Gen Z, is honestly, a lot of it's just kind of a hopelessness, whether it's economic or political or spiritual. It's just whether it's the doom spending. It's kind of what they've been coined because people losing hope that they'll ever buy a house or start a family, and the replacement rate, like the number of children being born, is at its lowest ever. I think it's down to like 1.58 per couple. So that is the mentality that we're against, and that's the thing we have the answer to as Christians. Like, share that in everything we do, whether it's inviting them to our house, being hospitable, talking about politics, talking about religion. Don't be afraid to talk about these things, even though it's, kind of jokingly, we're told not to do those. We're told not to do those by the enemy. These are not inappropriate topics to discuss. They're the most impactful topics we can discuss with anyone ever.
Right.
So don't be afraid of it, and instill it in your kids. Be like Josh. Take your kids out sign waving.
Yeah, but help them to understand the biblical word for understand, right, is to stand under, to humble yourself, to come below, and help somebody have the same biblical perspective in a humble way. And so that's children, that's generations, that's all sorts of folks, but it takes a lot of humility in it. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to the Current Situation podcast. Jordan and I dedicate this time to really just try to bring some of this knowledge to the forefront of your mind of what's going on, and we hope that it's been encouraging for you. We hope that you've learned something new, and that we can spark something inside of you to engage in this process. So we appreciate you tuning in, and stay tuned. Next week we've got a special guest, and it is going to be great. A great friend of mine, and it's going to be wonderful. With that being said, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you again next week.